Welcome back. You're doing well, guys. It's like a late afternoon kickoff now, actually. Listen, we all have our favourite players. And for the true fan, there are some players who always have a special place in their heart. For some Arsenal fans, it's Perry Groves. Our next guest failed his audition for the full Monty, but inspired it. And he's part of the legendary Arsenal back four. It's probably done more to help people understand the offside rule than anyone else. I'm delighted that Martin Keown is joining us this afternoon. I'd like to say I'm a similar age to Martin, but no way anywhere near his remarkable career. He sort of straddled two eras, from the old Football League to the Premier League, from the 1-0 to the Arsenal to the Invincibles. He's now going to have a wonderful conversation with Amy Lawrence. Please welcome Martin Keown.
Afternoon. Thank you all for coming out today, turning out. It's nice to have a weekend without a game, although there's a women's game on today, so we wish them well. We won't be able to see that, will we?
I'm sure someone will keep us posted if there's a goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was ready to intro you, but you've already introduced yourself. So I'm not sure how much of an intro I need to do. I'm pretty sure that most of the people in this room are pretty au fait with this man right here. I hope you've been enjoying the day so far. I'm Amy Lawrence. I am an Arsenal correspondent for The Athletic. And in my younger days, I was watching this man from the North Bank and Clock End at various points, and have written books that have involved some pretty amazing experiences that he was on the inside of the dressing room for. He's got an incredible wealth of knowledge and passion for this football club. In fact, I would argue there aren't many players who have had the kind of honours that he has had, who have as much heartfelt, deep feeling for Arsenal Football Club. And
can I underline that a little bit? So
I haven't even finished my intro yet. You're back in.
No, just in terms of connection. So Al Fields, remember the great central defender? That was, people don't know his name too well, but Les Compton. So there were the Compton brothers. Both of them played cricket and football for England, which was quite remarkable. Les Compton. And he introduced me to Les Compton, Al Fields, and he played in the 30s. So he would talk to me about playing then and how it was to represent Arsenal, and how he was one of the oldest players to ever play for England as an outfield player, which is something I became as well, actually, the 8th oldest outfield player to play for England. I think he's the oldest. So that's how far I can go back. I can touch back to the 30s. Which is really when the club was really dominant, wasn't it? I think winning 5 or 6 titles in that period before the war. So I'm not calling myself Mr. Arsenal. Tony is Mr. Arsenal, Tony Adams. We were both in the same youth team. But no, it resonated with me that what this guy had achieved. And when you understand the history, it makes it even lovelier to have played for that football club. And now to be thought of, not in the same level, but actually, you know, we did some good things there as well. You know?
You were considered to be an Arsenal fan growing up before you played for them. That's sort of in the story. How did that come about? Did you have an affiliation?
No,
caring for the club before you
my
signed?
brother was an Arsenal fan, and my parents were Arsenal fans because of the Irish connection. There were so many Irish players, wasn't there, back in the day? You know, Pat Jennings, Pat Rice, Sammy Nelson. That was my fan. I was a Liverpool fan from a very young age, from 8 years of age. I was a Keegan fan. So I was kind of like in the playground every time I got the ball, Keegan, you know, I was calling out his name as I was putting the ball in the back of the net. So that was kind of my journey. But when I arrived at Arsenal as a young kid to do evening training, to trials, about 13 years of age, then the whole place overwhelmed me because I just wanted to be then. Everything was about Arsenal. Liverpool just disappeared. This was real. I had a chance to be a player at the club. I remember my first day going into Highbury, doing evening training, and felt there was some sort of presence there. There was nobody in the ground. but it just felt there was an atmosphere. And it was like the players of yesteryear might be on my shoulder, helping me. I really felt that. So when I eventually get to play in the team, many years later actually, seemed to take me forever to get in the Arsenal first team. I was 19, but I thought that was old. I just felt that support of everybody, and it was I found first team football a little bit easier than playing in the reserves. I'll have to be honest with that. I'm not kind of give it the big and you go in and it's suddenly a different level. I was more than ready. I'd been out on loan to Brighton, so I was ready to bring this back to represent Arsenal.
We're supposed to have a copy of his book here, so if you can just imagine a really brilliant book which Martin wrote called On the Edge, which seems an apt sort of a name, Martin, an apt title.
On the Edge, yeah, I think you're right. It's funny because when I sat down to write the book, and I remember actually being on the edge when I was sitting down with the guy who was helping me to write it, and saying, I need more from you, and he went, Jesus.
And he's an intense guy as well.
You're on the edge. And I said, maybe that's the title for the book. And I said, yes, let's do it, because I think sometimes to get the best results, you do have to be on the edge. And I can control it better now. There were times when I couldn't control it. I can think of a moment at Old Trafford, with Mr. Van Nistelrooy, yeah. Poor bloke, yeah. I have spoke to him, last season actually, just in time, just before he got sacked at Leicester. I managed to catch up with him, and he didn't seem to be carrying any crosses over it. He wasn't bothered at all. In fact, he was like delighted that we were.
Yeah, but he had it coming. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he did. I was talking to I think a 30-year-old man the other day who was in the playground reenacting what I'd done, and it does feel like a playground thing, doesn't it, to do, and I think it did. I probably had already done that years before in the playground when I'd scored a winning goal or something, and here I was trying to get him to react because I wanted to get him sent off as well. I was thinking ahead that let's get him suspended, because Patrick was suspended now for a number of games. But that galvanised us actually, and I kind of felt as the senior player that I led us into something that I should have been above, and I think maybe that was the sort of the beginning of the end of my Arsenal career, because maybe some of the board have thought maybe he shouldn't be getting involved. But when I spoke to Freddie Lundberg recently, Freddie said no. It was like a moment when we said, that's it now. We're not going to take any of this anymore, where they've been overly aggressive in big games. So it's interesting how everyone saw it in a different way, and it really did galvanise the group.
Over the next hour-ish, we're going to be hearing a lot about Martin as a man as well as a footballer. We try and get under the skin of...
Are we?
Apparently so. But I'm just intrigued. Your use of the word galvanising struck a chord with me, and I hope you don't mind. I'm going to take you to a few difficult places right now with this first question, but I think it's relevant to what's happening with Arsenal now. So we're in the middle of this international break, and the last game, the most recent feeling that Arsenal have had is not a good one, as we all know. I'm wondering if you don't mind going back in time and revisiting what it's like in those dressing rooms. You've been in the dressing room against Real Zaragoza in 95, against Liverpool in 2001 where they nicked the cup final. In 2000, the UEFA Cup against Galatasaray penalties, which is I'm sorry to bring up all these really hideous memories. But what I'm trying to go to with this is, as an experienced player, when you're in the dressing room with your guys that you're working all season, every day, putting yourself through it to try and strive to win something, and you have a real big blow, what are you thinking? What are you doing? What can this team right now be doing or feeling after Wembley? They've still got 3 massive prizes ahead. How do they make sure that they galvanise themselves?
I can talk to you about what we went through. So we were building. So we had Overmars and Anelka, didn't we? And then we didn't. And Manu Petit all went out the door. Incredible talents. You'd look around the dressing room and you'd say, well, I finally take nothing away from, because I was in an amazing group of youth team players, 6 full internationals, the Tony Adams, Merson, Quinn, Thomas, Rocastle. I managed to get in there somehow. And Martin Hayes and Gus Caesar, all in the first team. So we had an amazing group. But I find myself with this incredible group again, and it breaks up. And then we go 3 seasons where we come second. But we're also losing in major finals. And it's always a defining moment when you lose in a final. And I remember being on the pitch at the Millennium Stadium. We lost to Liverpool in a game we should, I mean, if VAR was around today, you know, I mean, there's 2 or 3 handballs, isn't there? From Honcho when he stops Henry from scoring.
Yeah.
So you just feel as if the world's against you. And I remember saying on the pitch, this ain't happening again. This does not happen again. Whatever we do, we have to do more. This ain't going to happen again. You vow to do better. I hope that was happening at the weekend. I hope it hurt that much, these players. Okay, we were in more finals, but we also came second. You get no silver medal for coming second. You know, like, our record was quite amazing in those years with Wenger. But you have to use it. The manager uses this line, doesn't he, about oxygen. You have to use that hurt. But somewhere there has to be a massive determination for people to turn this around. And we did turn it around. And we climbed that mountain again. And we win the league at Old Trafford. You know, and that was a massive moment where we kind of dominate English football again. So it can turn. And, you know, like the song, We Shall Overcome, you know, like, you've got to dig in. And it's not going to be easy. And it now feels as if the rest of the world's against Arsenal. You know, like all these detractors or haters, you know, it's on another level. You know, Carragher saying it's a national pastime. No, it's not a national pastime. It's just 1 or 2 people who try and grow this. But we have to overcome it. And I hope that that they can do it and they keep believing. We did, and it does take a very special group of people to come out from the ashes. Because it feels like that, you know, when you're on, the whole thing's caught fire and you've got to come out, the phoenix has to rise, and that's what they need to do now.
Do you see in this group, I mean, the difference maybe was you had a lot of winners already in your group, but,
Yeah, but
you know,
I think
that had won a lot of stuff. Do you see in this group the right stuff, for, even though they don't have necessarily the medals to prove it just yet?
Do you know, I feel that it's about good people. You know, so when I see the manager now, I think essentially he's a good man. I think Richard Garlick is a good man. They're surrounded by really good people. I'm not sure all of those people were there in the interim years when Wenger left. I don't think Wenger was happy with what was being built behind him, but he stayed anyway. So now I think there's good people, and that's the basis for me. You can achieve great things with good people. The quality is there, but they've got to believe in themselves. Do you know? It's like, it's an us and them situation, and you're not going to get there before me. I think we're now going to have a head-to-head with Man City, and it kind of is a winner-takes-all for me. We need to win the next 2 matches, and then we get to play at the Etihad, and let's get it on. And this time round, this is another cup final of a different sort, and we have to win. Simple.
I just want to take you back. You were born in 1966.
Good
A
year.
few days before England won the World Cup. Your parents were Irish, your family upbringing.
One from the north, one from the south, yeah.
Was
Quite a cocktail.
Yeah. Growing up in 1970s England with Irish heritage, how was that for you? I mean, I think in that period, it was much less maybe welcoming and open than it is nowadays.
Yeah.
Did you face any kind of difficulties?
Yeah, lots of discrimination. It's interesting, really. I suppose I was trying to get to the bottom in the book about what formulates my personality, what, you know, how I kind of feel. In a way, lots of parallels. You know, even at Arsenal, sort of trying to belong. You know, is he a member of the back 4 or not? Do you know, Nick Hornby's written that book, and it's like, am I in it? Aren't I? You know, am I English? Aren't I? Am I Irish? You know, so all of it's sort of interwoven. And growing up in Oxford, it's quite a civilised place. But we were just, you know, just a little bit, we were maybe half a mile away from where it wasn't so civilised. And my mum and dad had a corner shop, like a supermarket come off licence. And there was graffiti on that. We were called names in the street. And, you know, it was tricky. So the community, Irish community, really sort of had to pull together, and it was all around the church. And, you know, so it was kind of like, people see me now still think, is he English? You know, growing up in that area. So I meet people in Oxford, and I don't know if they know me if they went to school, if they know me through the TV, you know, or they always saw me through football. So, like, I kind of know everybody in Oxford. But everyone knows now the true story, I suppose. But it was tricky growing up, and you had to fight to sort of just to survive and belong. And actually, the Irish made a mistake because they called me a plastic paddy. Whenever I went near to Ireland, you're a plastic paddy. And I thought, no, I'm not plastic anything. And my dad said, no, son, we've come to this country and we've taken the benefits of this country. You're not Irish, you're English. And I think that's a big thing because the Irish, nobody pines for home more than the Irish. Nobody writes more songs. Take me home, country road. No, the Irish love it, don't they? So it was a big thing of him to say, no, be English. Because I maybe not made, I've said that, my youngest son went on to play football for the Republic of Ireland. He should have had an outstanding career. He had knee injuries. He was at Reading. He started at Reading. Arsenal wanted him in the early years. We had a great deal of joy watching him play football, but it was taken away. So all of this can be taken away in a moment. You know, these footballers, it looks an easy job, but it isn't. But so the Irishness is, it was enough there for him to go and play for the Republic. I was very proud and pleased to see him play for the Republic under 21s. Because I feel I'm just as much Irish as I am English, and I don't really want that taken away from me.
You think Declan Rice, for example, has faced some quite interesting perceptions
I nearly
about
said
that
it to him.
sort of
We
choice.
interviewed him on the pitch side, and I nearly said it to him because it was St Patrick's Day.
Don't you think
Happy St.
footballers are
Patrick's
under
Day.
too much pressure? You must be this or you must be that. Is it a bit unfair?
I didn't say it because of maybe it might be frowned upon, but it was St Patrick's Day, and I wasn't able to celebrate it because I was doing TV, and he couldn't either. But he's got that heritage. I've met his parents, and it's his parents' parents who are Irish, and it's the same journey. You go to Ireland every year on the ferry. They're great memories. You know, we had incredible holidays. You know, everybody else was going off somewhere. I don't know where they were going. We were on a farm, milking cows, bringing in the hay. It was great to do that. You know, if you go to Ireland, you get winter, summer, spring, and autumn, all in one day, don't you? You know, or in an hour. You know, so they were good times.
Being good at football as a kid, if you're trying to work out who you are and how you feel about sort of some things that are a bit confusing and difficult, was being good at football the thing that gave you confidence?
Saved my life. Saved my life because I was always a little bit dyslexic, and I had probably learning difficulties. I managed to sort of camouflage that, and even now, sounding words and stuff, it can be tricky. I need to write everything phonetically when I'm doing commentaries, but I feel I'm smart enough to find a way around it. So that was tricky growing up. When you're the cool kid on the playground who plays good at football, and you can't read and write, and you're 11 years of age or 12 years of age, that can be difficult. So it was about the building blocks weren't in place for me as a young kid. So that was something that I had to overcome, but I don't let that get in the way of how I analyse, how I see things. So yeah, that was it wasn't a perfect world, but when I met with the football, it was funny because I passed it to the wall, and the wall became my best friend because it gave me back. Whereas when I played with my mates, they never gave me the ball back. So I started passing the ball. I was talking to Dennis Birkin about this, and Dennis said that he did exactly the same, and he would try and get all these different bits of spin on the ball with outside the right foot, inside of their both feet. I was only using one. and then playing against the wall and keeping it up against the wall and then going to the roof. And when it came off the roof, it came off the gutter. And it was like it could go anywhere because the gutter wasn't in great shape. And it would flick up and I could control it. And then so my skill set was developing just passing against the wall. And then when I went in to play football, it was all about running with the ball and having pace, and I was always very quick. My mum was an amazing athlete. God bless her. She's still alive, but she has Alzheimer's and she's in a home. 14 years she's been at home. So, but that sporting prowess probably came from her. My father was always very quick as well, as I'm told. He didn't play any other sport other than athletics. So I kind of developed this thing, and then I suddenly, at my 8th birthday, came along. And what we do with this crazy kid who just plays football all the time? Well, okay, for his 8th birthday, they bought me some boots. And there was an ad in the paper, and we had all these clubs right in the middle of Oxford, Garsington, just on the edge. So it was a bit Irish, felt Irish for them. They played in green, so it was all kind of suiting. And I went off to join them as a birthday present. And then I was too young, and then we took off and we won 2 doubles, and I was the top goal scorer.
Premonition.
Yeah, back-to-back doubles, under 10s, under 11s, and we won everything that there was to win. And I thought the team wasn't really keeping up, even at that age. So I decided to leave. It sounds
You surprised me, Martin.
And then I was accused of being a medal hunter. And I went to play for Rose Hill. These are all local clubs. And the father of the team, this is nepotism that we're talking about now. The father of the team, I couldn't put this in the book. This is the thing that really annoyed me. So many things can't go in a book. And they were worried that this guy might be offended. But actually, no, I've spoken to him since. And he's been, oh, I changed your position. Wow, that's with me. Because his son was playing centre forward. I signed for his club and he said, you're not going to play centre forward. You're going to go to defence. So no one really scored any goals against us that season because I went to defence. But that change of move was probably instrumental in what eventually happens to me as a player.
See, when we think about Martin Keown, the footballer, it's hard to imagine that you were a striker. I mean, you're such a defender's defender.
Yeah.
You seem to relish it so much, that competition, that contest.
But running in the channel, like I knew where to be on the shoulder, so I could just park myself. Oh, you want to make that run, do you? So I just was dealing with it. And my dad was really annoyed because he wanted me to be the centre forward. And we got to the final of the trophy that year, and I got man of the match in the final for my defending. And he was like, okay, then, I get it. And he started coming back to watch me because he felt that I'd been manipulated out of the centre forward position.
Kids footballer.
Politics.
Yeah. When you join Arsenal, how does it? What was going on? Were you were living in Oxford and going up once or twice a week to train? How was the? I mean, obviously we look at today's Hale End, and these kids are coming in at pre-academy at 5 years old, and you know it's incredible facility. Everything's perfect. The coaching's top. They're really taken care of and treated like mini professionals from a very young age. I'm assuming you didn't have that experience.
No, we didn't. And there was a trialling situation. So Terry Murphy was a fantastic guy. You'd know Terry,
yes.
wouldn't you? And, great guy. And Terry came and watched because basically you have district teams, don't you? So you play for the Sunday League team or that's Sunday League or the school team. And the best way to find players is basically park up to I don't know what they are called in London, what team they might be. South London, is it? Mm. You know, so this was Oxford. And he arrived and he picked 8 of us. And then the 8 of us, you know, we weren't a bad team. And then he came back and asked for 2. We went on a trial. The whole thing was washed out, but it was a good idea that it was because it gave me a chance to have a look at it. Referee was refereed Liam Brady and was saying to us, you know, if any of you have a career like Liam Brady, you know, they're giving you all these little crumbs. And then we came back and we did on the pitches where they're AstroTurf, just next to King's Cross, not far away from here, isn't it? Just
Market Road?
Yes, Market Road. That's where I came, and I was right back, and it was AstroTurf, and I was a very good, what I call playground player, or I thought I was. And because I'd never played on AstroTurf before, and every time they gave me the ball, I just ran with it right back, and Terry Murphy was straight away over to my parents to say, hold on. I could see that happening at the corner of my eye. So they brought me in, and then you started doing evening training, and then they'd be bringing all manner of players from all over London, and every 6 weeks they would cull it down, it'd be a different group. So I got to see some of the players that I was eventually going to be playing with back in the future. You know, Martin Hayes turned up. Was a good player, winger, quick. You saw Rocastle. Many years out, I saw Kevin Campbell. I actually did the training sessions for some of these. They to give us good experience. Don, I would say, "Ro, you go and coach the evening training." So I did that and met Kevin Campbell, which is a very sad story about Kevin, but always a great person, even from that age. So you do the evening training, and you get to know the club, and then they start to. You play in the South East Counties. I was playing in the South East Counties from a very young age. Again, I'd stop at Terry Murphy's house, and it was no more than a lilo, really. The bed I was on. Pat, his wife, was an amazing person. They made me feel so welcome. And I was doing the Rubik's Cube at the time, and Terry couldn't do it, and somehow I could do it. So we spent every Friday night trying to get Terry past one stage, and then it took off. They wanted to sign me. I played in the South East Counties FA Youth Cup game at Highbury under the lights. Played against Danny Wallace. He was already playing in the first team, and I just realised I could deal with him. I could deal with his pace, and they were like, they came down after the match. Terry Neal to say, "Wow. We got to get this kid signed." And I was like, wow, I'm there. I've got a chance. So, yeah, I signed. Then I had Oscar Slatteris, which is what finished my son. And then I had kind of a year out in that first year. That first year was really difficult for me at Arsenal. A lot of issues. I fell out with the coach, and my path was blocked.
Do you remember what you fell out over?
I moved because I was living in digs with him, and if I could do it all again, because you can't have regrets, but if I could do it all again, I'd have just kept my mouth shut and just lived with them and just stayed there. The fact it was South Woodford, I just thought it was unprofessional, that I was too far away from the training ground. So it was an hour in and an hour out to the training ground, so it's 2 hours before training. So I said, look, could I move? And they took it the wrong way. The coach then said, oh, you've made life difficult for me, so I'm going to make life hell for you. And then, so I didn't think I was really
How
getting...
old were you then?
16 at that point, yeah. So it passed. You know, I nearly never signed pro over this. And I said to Don Howe, come and watch me play then. If you think I'm going to get less money than the rest of the players, come and watch me. And he came the next day and said, you get exactly what they're getting. Brilliant performance yesterday. So, you know, you have to...
You've got a strong sense of fairness, haven't you, I think?
Absolutely. If you listen to me with Simon Jordan every Monday, I really want it to be fair, and I don't like these narratives that people create. I mean, to be honest, I think it's fair comment to say that Arsenal have been quite magnificent this season. I sincerely hope it doesn't go wrong. But for now, we shouldn't be really being criticised to the level we are. So that is probably fair comment for me. Just
going back to the Arsenal Part 1, if you like.
Part 1, gosh.
So, when you left in 87...
86.
86, sorry, 86. Did you...
Got it wrong there.
Did you think that was it? Or did you always have this thing nagging away that that's my place, that's where I want to be? You know, it was unfinished business. Did that nag away at you? Or in the way of football, are you just like, right, that's gone, on with the next, you're thinking of today, now you're at your next club?
No, it had a profound effect on me when I left, because the very next day I was really upset that I'd made the wrong call. And I actually could have unravelled it all, because what they did was illegal, Aston Villa. They approached me while I was still under contract. They signed my contract and put it in a safe. And we had to wait 6 weeks before the contract then became active, and we went to a tribunal. And I didn't quite understand. I just felt, well, okay, look, I left on a point of principle, and I'm going to have to stay on a point of principle, because I took their money, I took their work. You know, it was a perfect stranger that was offering me the world to sign for Villa. And the club I was coming from we were earning something like £200 a week, and they'd offer me £250 a week, £50 rise. And I just said, well, look, guys, no. They told me last year that this was all going to change substantially if I get in the team. And what's happened? Well, what happened was George had come in, and George was quite tight with money, and he wasn't going to change, you know. And I was like, well, okay, I keep getting all these promises. George, you'll have to take my word for this. You need to do a bit more, just £100 more. Just give me another £50 more, and I'll do it. Out of principle, it'll just make me feel. But if you don't do that, I'm going to have to go. So I'm making that as a thing. And he just looked at me and went, where are you going? What club are you going to? Who's going to sign you? You know, so I said, oh, okay, I'm off. Where are you going? Where are you going? You know, and I said, well, you've asked me to find, you know, you challenged me, now I'm off. So I literally went out the front door and I looked at it, I thought, oh, I can make the next train. I legged it out of Highbury, boof, got on a train, got home, and the phone's ringing, and it's Aston Villa. And it's just like, you think destiny. And if that hadn't happened, and if I had a chance to calm down, I would never have left. But I have to live with that, because it's still kind of like, what was I doing? I missed out on, I might well have had more medals than anybody else, but I might not have been able to overcome George Graham, because we were very clashy, and we had some major rows. In fact, we had such a big row that round 96 time, and I couldn't put this in the book, but Terry was told, don't touch me, for the 96 group, because George was saying no. But like we've like George now, we meet now, it's great. We put all that to one side. We were just maybe similar, do you know, combustible, you know, because I don't take a lot to get myself going, and George would wind me up too much. And he might have been able to understand me, and we found a working relationship.
It was different times, though. I think the manager-player relationship was
Wenger was unique. in terms of like how he made you feel, into that belief system that he created.
He had a much more human energy about how he wanted to talk to players.
I don't want to race to stage two,
it's more old-fashioned with George. I'm just talking about George. You're not the only one to have had that kind of clashing, I suppose. I'm just going to tell a quick story that I always found absolutely astounding. You can tell me if this is true. But apparently there was a day when they were doing push-ups, and Michael Thomas wasn't doing them with much care and attention, let's just say, a bit casually. That was Michael.
Yeah.
And George was telling him to do it properly, and Mickey didn't really want to do it properly, and this kind of standoff happens. And George allegedly sort of sits on Michael Thomas while he's...
Oh, to make it more difficult.
To make it more difficult. And you know, this goes on, and Michael will not go down for this push-up. And it ends up being, you know, I mean, mad stuff, right?
Yeah, but that's just how George was. I mean, the reason we did sit-ups and press-ups was so George could look good on the beach. We'd only started doing them about March time. As soon as the sun came out, seriously, and because George used to do this sort of like, when he used to run even, he had to sort of how he looked and how he was, and oh, Martin, great, that's fantastic. If I'm doing my, you know, Kevin Campbell was the strongest, you know, he just throw these weights around. And Jordan, but that, of course, you know, if we were doing it regularly, then for me it was more a case of the boss just wanted to look good for the summer photos.
In fairness to George, he didn't do bad. When you were away, Arsenal won the league in '89, again in '91. Yeah, and then you come back, and in 1993...
2 more codes.
I think you cup-tied and couldn't play in those 2 cups, which were won, and then in '94 were injured for the Cup Winners' Cup.
Played in 9 of the 11 games to get to the final, and then got injured.
Did you feel a bit cursed? Because, like in a sliding doors way, you almost could have had 5 more trophies, and they never quite happened.
Feeling very cursed. I was thinking, well, what it was actually in the game I got injured in was Queen's Park Rangers a week before, and no one seemed to be trying. And I was flying around the pitch thinking, what's going on? And actually, that's the thing, I was trying too hard. No one wanted to get injured for the final. Then I got injured. And and George was trying to take me, he tried to do a fitness test with me, and I pulled my hamstring, you know, 5 days previous. You know how long they're out for now and operations they have. So there was no way I could do it. No way. If it was like 10 subs now, I might have said, okay, boss, you know, let me, but it wasn't going to last 5 minutes. So I couldn't do that. So I had to step away. That was, yeah, it was tough. But when I eventually get to play in a final, it's interesting. When I had Wenger around, I was trying to do extra training. And he said to me, you know, we've got a game tomorrow. You don't do anything. You're in fantastic shape. Just leave it. So he was very protective and made sure that I was going to be ready for these finals.
So part 2 of chapter 2 of your Arsenal career really changes direction when Arsene comes, but also maybe preceding that when Dennis comes.
Yeah,
Dennis is probably maybe the first brick in the wall, if you like, to the modernisation of Arsenal. So can you just tell us a bit about the impact of Dennis's arrival?
Well, Dennis was one of those guys, a control freak. Dennis was a classy guy in every way, the way he lived his life. So fantastic role model for the players. Just to give you an idea, I wasn't really part of the drinking culture, which sat me on the outside of it, and then you're a little bit like, who's different, you know? So when I saw Dennis coming, but Dennis had this ability on the pitch, covered with his lifestyle. He wasn't actually eating with us at the training ground. He was going home because he didn't like the food at the training ground. Didn't think it was at the level, right? But in those days, it wasn't really. We thought it was okay, it was nice, but it was. We remember we were renting a building, weren't we, from the London University, and when they have their sports day on a Wednesday, so we couldn't use it. It was Friday afternoons, we couldn't use it. It's ridiculous, really, isn't it? We're a professional football club. So when the boss came in, he just said, no, I'm changing all this. But Dennis was like, oh, lovely, you know, because I wanted...
That was when there was the fire, wasn't there, at the training ground?
Yes, so that's right. I remember...
The new one.
I remember, because I know the boss didn't like the training ground. When I rang him to say what happened, he said it was Arsene. And I said, fuck it.
Gave you that one.
Yeah. How are you going to get away with that with the insurance, boss? So that set the thing on a roll, because the boss, it was the ingenuity he showed, because we tried to buy that training ground for 12. They wanted £12 million, because right next to the M25, they saw it as some sort of housing estate. So the boss crept next door to speak to the local farmer, who he did a deal with to buy it and build it all for 12 million. So I don't know what he paid for the land.
That's the
but he certainly got it
economist
a
in
whole lot cheaper. But not only that, he bought 120 acres. There is still a massive opportunity to develop that training ground if they want to take that forward. You know, they can put a ladies' centre there, they can put a ladies' stadium there. There's all sorts they can do. So, and that's with Wenger's vision. He didn't have the vision over the ground, because we now have a ground that's not big enough for our fans, which is, and I think that was on the boss, because the boss was so concerned about putting the club in a financial difficulty. He had to sign a 5-year deal. His part of the banks made him a part of the deal for the club, which is incredible, really, isn't it? When you think they were saying, if you go anywhere, this loan isn't going to be secured.
Just want to take you back to that first double in '98, which was a massively important signpost of what Arsenal were turning into as a sort of modern club that played a style of football people loved.
You know, it was overnight, though, Amy. So literally overnight. So the season before he came in, and it was like, you know, when you play for a manager who says, and this was George, give it to someone who can play mine. Yeah, that didn't happen with George, with Arsene. It was like, right, you're going to be a complete player. You're going to be a complete person when you work with me. And there was such a joy in that, because we can all play, really. We just restrict ourselves. So it was total football with Arsene Wenger, and it happened overnight. Literally overnight. If you go back to the fans who are watching, think open-mouthed, I can't.
Well, Patrick Vieira coming into the team.
Well, Maurice Grant actually helped me write this book, and he was an Arsenal fan at the time, and he reminded me of that. He said it was just amazing to see this, and we were on the tail, you know, that season. With the first season, we missed out on the champ because the boss came in about 3 months in. When he came in, we were top of the table under Pat Rice, and then we slipped a little bit because obviously it changed, and the boss had a certain set of rules that he wanted, but he didn't apply them, which I thought was really brave. And it'd be really easy, wouldn't it? You see so many managers coming in now and say, no, like Amorim, we can only play this way. That's it. We've got to be 3 at the back. The boss wanted to play 4 at the back and carried on with a 3. Because he said, I don't want it to be about me. You're on trial, not me. If I suddenly change everything, I'm on trial. So it was very clever in so many ways that he empowered us to be at the best we possibly could be. And I probably benefited more than anybody else in that dressing room on that.
Just going back to that '98 season, so that game at Old Trafford that Arsenal won 1-0 with Overmars' goal, where really that felt like a swing game, where Man United, I think, felt like they were the favourites at that point. They had a big lead. Arsenal then won that game, and suddenly the whole momentum swung. The reason I'm asking you about that.
Do you remember that, guys?
I remember it extremely well. Sorry, guys. Do you remember?
Do you remember the fan doing the fan?
She sits next to me at.
No, the guy. There was a guy, wasn't there? There was a guy.
Yes. That guy. No, the girl in the.
We still had a hell of a lot to do then, didn't we?
Yeah, it was February. It was still quite, or March. It was still quite early compared to now. But my question really was going to be: Arsenal have got 7 games left now in the Premier League.
7 cup finals.
What's your advice to the players about how to deal with... Arsenal won 10 games in a row in '98, which you'll remember in the league, to win the league.
We did 12. We did 13 in a row in 2002.
So what do you say if you get the chance to... Carol gives you a ring and says, Martin, I want you in to talk to the boys.
I'll be there tomorrow. I'll be there tomorrow.
What would you tell them?
Well, I would say, guys, look, you know, we've only got 6 weeks to run of the season, but what you do now in this very small time, you'll be remembered for forever. So nothing else matters more. Just for this little period, everything else in your families, everything else everywhere else will be that much better if you've got this incredible 6 weeks ahead of you. Just let's apply ourselves. Let's eat, drink, breathe, sleep football between now and then. And we can make this happen. We can do special things. But be in the moment. What I mean is be in the moment is like sense what's going on around you, you know? Like trust your teammates, but actually if you see something happening, step in. Do you know, because you won't get another chance. You can, it's a bit like, I remember when we were winning things, I was watching a movie with my sons, Back to the Future. They were inscribing the, you know when it's coming off it was changing who was winning things. And I was thinking, hold on, this is so in the moment. I got the destiny of my futures in my own hands here, and with the rest of this group. We can inscribe on that Arsenal. Let's make it happen. Don't wait for it to happen. Go and do it. That's what I'd say to this group. It's not going to be handed to you. You're going to have to go and earn it.
Now, I know... Sorry. I know a lot of your teammates would always say that you would talk a lot around the place.
Yeah, Because
did you enjoy that? Did you love talking to them? Because
No,
it feels
very,
like
very
whether
much.
it was Dennis Bergkamp or whether it was a young player, you would want to go and talk to them and
I love
get
the
hold
foreign
of them,
players.
inspire
I
them.
love the foreign players because it was like, it was more with expression and they could see in my eyes what I wanted, do you know? So like, and I
Were they
went,
scared?
actually, do you know, no, but do you know like in trying pecking order and trying to get somewhere, when all the foreign players came in, you had to be a really good English player to survive it, didn't you? So in a way that my kind of order of pecking went up, didn't it? Oh, he's still in there. He's still surviving. How's he still in that team? Do you know? And I sort of came out of the box that I was put in. He can play. He can pass. But the boss made me be myself. And it was like, I'm going to help people to be the best they can. So I had some difficult experiences when I was at Everton. I was brought in after a group that won things. And it was like, oh, this lot isn't good enough. So when we had that period of not winning things, I knew how the new signings felt, having been one of those players. So I was able to sort of help those to settle in. It's not your fault, Amy. No, it's our fault. It's all of our fault. We'll make this work. So it doesn't go wrong. So we had some periods where it didn't go well. So, but the boss, I have to say, encouraged me. Even the Liverpool game when we were losing and I said something at half-time, I wouldn't have done it under George Graham probably, because George wouldn't have really wanted that. He was so much in charge, you know? And you would have to have said it in a really aggressive way to get a word in anyway. You might have had to have him around the throat to get him to shut up so you could speak. But the boss was always wanting to promote you and what you could do in the group, you know. So he used to say to me, Martin, without you, we don't win anything. You have to play. You have to be involved, you know. So, and I believe, for some reason, I believed it and took it forward.
Do you feel that in
Sorry
a way?
about the Wenger accent.
It's okay.
I've done the audios. I've done the audio book, and I've done the George Graham boys. We did have. We were going to get professionals to do this, and the guy who did it with, local chap in Oxford, said, "No, mine. I think this is quite good. I think you're not bad at these." So that's the last thing you tell me, isn't it? So it's all in the audio.
Excellent.
You have to listen to it.
So if you've got the book, go get the audio as well.
Sorry, guys.
Do you feel that in a way, when you reflect that your latter years are in some ways your happiest because you were more at peace with who you were and your role in the squad, even though you maybe weren't playing as much? If you think about the Invincible year.
Oh, you always want to play, let me tell you.
You know, was it a battle between you're desperate to play, but also kind of really relishing the role that you had as a sort of uncle of the team?
I'm 38 years of age, and I think at 32 years of age, I'm not going to accept that I'm not in the team. Obviously, I got suspended as well, so it took me right back out of it. But it was really how the environment the manager created that helped me to then make that adjustment. And I wanted to extend that. I wanted to go into coaching. In 2006, the boss brought me in, and I was a coach at the club. We get to the Champions League final. And then there was some resistance, you know, which is probably normal around some of the staff, which is delicate because I don't want to talk about them. They're all good people. But they perhaps the manager wasn't preparing them for change, you know, or assistance, shall we say. So I then stepped away for family reasons as well. But I found that at the end of my career, I could step back and realise this was a special group. We're doing special things, and I have to tell them that. You know, I remember saying to Colo, you'll look back at this career, this season, and you'll say, how come that was so easy? And he says, when he sees me now, you're right. After that, disaster. You know, I never get it right. But it's just like everything was happening beautifully. Do you know, people were reaching that maturity. You saw Vieira come in as a young kid, you know, all gangly and floppy, and then he turned into this man, and same with Henri, you know, some insecurities, and then you just told them how good they were. Do
you think that was the most in-the-zone team that you ever played with? Because when you look back at that team, it felt like there was this real swagger and confidence about them, and they just knew that they could go out and pretty much win every game.
Yeah, I think people were just starting to mature and just ripen just at the right stage, and there was enough anger and hurt there to make sure they made. But we, I have to say, we were Invincibles, but that's a consolation prize because we wanted to be champion. We wanted to win the Champions League. We wanted to win the FA Cup and the Premier League that season. So yeah, it's great that we've done something that maybe Manchester United haven't done, but or whoever. but really, there's always a feeling, I think, with people that are successful type personalities that they could have done more and they should have done more. And why didn't we do more? You know, you look at it now and there's, you know, all the movements, all the plus ones, and the fullback goes into midfield. And a lot of what we were doing was organically done. You know, so Perez and Lundberg would like to float in. So the manager would say, okay, I'm going to sign 2 wingers who don't want to be wingers. But by not being wingers, that means Henri might have to float out wide. And who's going to deal with that? It means that Lauren will go forward and Ashley will go forward. So all of these patterns were emerging. But there are times when the opposition do things in Europe, and we could have done with, you know, an extra midfield player, and it could have been more tactical. And that's probably that team then might have been better prepared to have gone further in some of the Champions Leagues. But I think also about the age of the group, and you know, the Champions League came along quite late for me, and it wasn't necessarily a priority. It certainly is now, isn't it? When that music first came out, the Champions League music, we were bored standing on the sidelines saying, well, we do this for national anthems, but what are we doing listening to this? Now, the kids love it, don't they? Look at me, I was a kid, I played the PlayStation game, I heard this music, now I'm here, wow. But for us, it was commercialisation gone too far, you know, of the Premier League or the Champions League.
I want to make sure we've got a few questions from the audience, so if you be prepared, just give us, just before we do, we're going to do a little quick fire round.
Gosh.
It's a 1-word answer, okay? Good old Arsenal or North London forever? Or 2 or 3 words.
Good old Arsenal.
Messi or Ronaldo? That was one that was
Messi.
Night in or night out?
Probably a night in, Nicola, what would you say? My wife's here today. And
Done well, that.
we've been together since, well, I was 15. So we went to school together. And so she gets a big mention in the book. So it's nice, actually, to have a day with Nicola, because it's football now, isn't it? And Amy's the same. We travel the length and breadth. I mean, we're privileged, aren't we, Amy? But it's still, would you say it's demanding? And I would say this is more demanding this year, isn't it? I'm asking you a question.
It's very demanding this year. I think mentally it's very demanding because everybody feels so much is at stake. And every minute of every game feels so on the edge, to borrow your words.
And 6 games in, it was Arsenal's to lose.
Well, it was Liverpool's to lose after 4, wasn't it? Apparently. But,
No, I don't know, but it's...
OK, I've got a couple more of these and then we're going to the floor. Gary Neville or Jamie Carragher?
Is this being recorded? Roy Keane.
Perfect answer. Right, let's take it to the floor. Who's got a question? Gentleman down there. Sorry. Microphone, please.
So how did it feel on that night against Shakhtar Donetsk when Arsene went with stick the big man up front? How did you feel when those 2 goals went in?
Good question.
Goodness, that was very eloquently spoken, if I may say so, from such a young man. You must have watched the video. Or you've come back in a new lifetime, yeah. I'll tell you how that felt, actually. It was interesting because when we got to the Champions League, the manager said they'd give us this incredible bonus structure if we won a match. And there we were, we didn't seem to be able to win a game. And I remember in that game, it was just ridiculous. And I thought, we're losing against this lot, and they weren't the best. So I decided to go up front for a little while, and my schoolboy days came back to me just for one evening. And so I scored, I think, a very easy goal. I think the first one was an easy goal because it dropped in the box and I put it in. And then the second one, I thought, oh, do you know what? I'm having myself a little bit now at this stage. And I get the second one. And then I didn't have a celebration, you know, because I just didn't plan to score goals. So I did exactly the same. I ran to the corner flag each time, and people couldn't really believe it was me, and I couldn't believe it was me. And I remember someone running around saying, we're going to win a game, we're going to get a bonus, you know, we're going to actually get a bonus. So that pleased the whole dressing room. And yeah, I think it's always good to have a moment. I remember I scoring a goal for Arsenal against Leeds, and there's a picture of me with Thierry Henry in the background running after me when I score, and that is a really rare picture for me because I usually ran after him when he scored.
Lovely.
Good question.
Gentleman behind, just there in the glasses.
Thanks very much for a great conversation. I just wonder if you'd like to reflect on the state of punditry in the country. And I'm not talking about co-coms or pitch side, more about the shouty stuff, which you take part in. Or I'm not saying accusing you of anything in particular, but I just wonder if you think that contributes to the discourse and the enjoyment that fans feel about football, or whether you think it's a kind of negative thing?
I think one or two players, former players, are mischievous, and they try and build things, build stories. And if I can, I'll try and put my foot on that as soon as I can. So it's a game within a game, so it seems. So people, quite adapt, quite skillful. I'm not going to name any names, but they'll say certain things, which applies pressure. We've been told we've got to win all four, and it's a disaster if we don't. How many are you going to win? That you feel like people are setting you up for a fall. So it's gone that way. So you need to adapt when you're doing it. You need to make sure you say the right things. You need to think it through. So I kind of feel a little bit that you represent the club, but I'm not representing the club because I'm going to have to be very honest. And I hope that it all comes good for Arsenal, because it's like it has to be fair comment from me. And I try to be as impartial as I possibly can. I did Aston Villa Arsenal in a game this season, and Prince William wasn't happy with who I gave man of the match to. It's crazy, isn't it? But and of course the player came on at the end of the game, and Buendia scores a goal in the 89th minute, and I gave out the man of the match in the 88th minute. I did point that out to Your Royal Highness, but so this is how it is now. It's just, but a lot of it's clickbait, and I'm suspicious sometimes that people getting paid extra money. Do you know? So if I can make this a story, because I'm getting paid just to do the show, but are other people getting more money for creating stories? Do you know? To wind me up, to say something, to create, a pantomime situation, because I'm not about pantomime. I've just talked with emotion, what I feel is real. I could invent things and create things, but I don't. There's not enough hours in the day, so I just try and keep it about what I really feel passionately about. And right now, I feel passionately that Arsenal can be champions.
Just to add to that, I think probably you'll all agree that not only was Martin the most unbelievable defender on the pitch for Arsenal, but he's an outstanding, colossal defender of Arsenal off the pitch right now, which is really needed.
Well, they don't really need defending. Do you know, because of what they're achieving? But
that's the case if people aren't being mischievous and trying to generate noise and what have you. But because of that environment, it's necessary for people to step in and put a foot on it.
You have to see it before other people see it. But I've been watching it brewing for since Game 6, as we've said. It's ours to lose. So. And even I was joking, because this is a joke. Max Dowman. I thought, what's the headline going to be tomorrow? It's going to be, they're a disgrace, those men. They've got to bring a 16-year-old kid in to win a game for them. I can't believe it. Arsenal shouldn't have to do this, That's how bizarre it's all becoming. So there we are. Maybe that's another line for Gary Neville and Karen.
From over that side? Any more questions? Anybody over this side? I know I've been over here. No? All right. The lady over there in the red and white striped jumper.
Thanks, Martin and Amy, for this afternoon. It's brilliant. Some of us were just at a lecture on Black Arsenal, and I'm wondering, Martin, whether you know anyone as capable as Dr. Clive and the other Clive to produce an Irish Arsenal book for us in the next few years.
Gosh. Well, that would be quite amazing, wouldn't it? I think John Devine was at a game that I was at recently, sat in front of me, another Irish player. There's so many of them, wasn't there? Pat Rice, David O'Leary, and Pat Jennings. Pat Jennings is one of the nicest men I've ever met in football. Such a gentleman. And he played for Arsenal and Spurs. He just proved that he was that nice, he got away with it. So maybe they should do it. Maybe Niall Quinn does it.
That's a good shout.
Maybe Niall Quinn suddenly remembers he played for Arsenal, not for Sunderland, and writes a book on Irish Arsenal. Good shout.
Any more questions? There's a lady just here in the middle.
Hello. I just wondered if you could articulate how difficult it is for Bukayo Saka to be captain of an Arsenal team in the current social media storm, just the whole atmosphere that's in football at the moment?
Well, it shouldn't be difficult, should it, for him to be the Arsenal captain? I'm not sure what you're alluding to, because I don't see it as an issue. I think he gets a lot of criticism, but he's played amazingly well for Arsenal for a long time now, and he needs our support, really. People are very quick to criticise. People are saying, "Oh, Saka's not quite at the level at the moment," and I'm like, well, but that's normal, because Ødegaard doesn't play now in that little pocket, does he? Just inside of him. We don't have Ben White so much. We have Timber on the right-hand side. So let's look for the collective. I'm not just wanting to point at any one person, but I think Saka is actually a fantastic role model. If you've been around him and you see him and how proud the club is of the journey he's been on and how he sort of holds himself, he doesn't get ahead of himself. So, no, I think he just needs a rest, quite frankly. Just needs a rest. And when he comes back, we'll get the best of him.
Gentleman here.
In 2003-2004 Invincibles season, what do you think changed to to win the Premier League? Because you weren't winning everything before that. What do you think changed in the team, a player or a tactic?
I think it's what you learn on the journey, and these building blocks have to be there. So you've had to have a bit of hurt, and of course by that time we'd won something in 2002, so we'd already gone beaten away from home. I think in 2002 we didn't lose an away game, and then in 2003 the manager was publicly telling people we can go a whole season unbeaten, which I thought was the wrong move. We can talk about it internally, boss, but let's not do it publicly, because people want to make it, make that count, don't they? We want to be the team that's going to beat Arsenal. But when we went through this in 2003, it was like we eventually lost, and it was announced that we could go a whole season unbeaten. In 2003-04, it was almost as if people had forgotten that. And it was only to the last 5 or 6 games where it suddenly came back out of the box again, didn't it? It was like, okay, now we can do this, because we're now going to be champions. We're out of the Champions League. We really focus on winning it. So it's a moment in time. I keep talking about that. Everything has to align. The stars have to align. People have to be ready. Wenger was probably at his best. Paul McCartney doesn't write classics anymore, does he? The Beatles had a moment in time where they were really at it, and that's when we were really at it back then.
Thank you all for sharing this lovely hour in the company of Martin. Thank you, Martin, for sharing so many great stories.